Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Another live broadcast with me, your host, Kev Baker, right here on today's Kev Baker Show, coming to you on Truth Frequency Radio, TFRlive.com, where we give you protection from deception and where we say silence is consent. And that's why you can't shut me up and you can't shut up any of the other shows that are here on the network. Around 33 different shows for you to choose from, and I can guarantee there's going to be something for everyone. So please, please, please check out all of the different shows that we've got here at Truth Frequency Radio, because it's one of the few places where we practice what we preach when we talk about free speech. Everything goes here, folks, and I'm telling you, it's where it's all happening, and it is home to the Kev Baker Show. And of course, I come to you from Smart City, Glasgow, right in the heartland of Bonnie, Scotland. We're going all the way from America to Australia and everywhere in between. You know, I should get the Proclaimers to sing me some kind of intro song. I'm sure they sang about a letter from America at some point. But that's for another show altogether. Or is it? Is it because we're talking music today? We are. Can you believe it? Get this. 5 years, ladies and gentlemen. 5 years from a person that I don't even know what his name was when he passed. But we're going to be getting into that today because we're talking about the purple rain under the purple rain. And to do that, I have got not one but two very special guests here with me today. And without any further ado, let me bring these crazy characters, because that's what they are, onto the broadcast, but not quite as crazy as the last time that we had Nacy here for a Kev Baker show. We'll talk about that in a moment. But Nacy, come to you first, brother. How you doing, man? They say nay, you can't hear him. He's left the call. Jimmy Jeans, how are you doing?
I am doing fine in the FEMA Region 9, boy. That's right. I'm doing good. Thanks for having me. I can't wait to get into the purple one. Do you hear me?
I do hear you, yes. I'm just re-adding Nacy to the call.
I wasn't
Hopefully
sure.
we'll get Nacy back.
For a second.
Well, usually that's the way things goes when you introduce somebody and have a conversation and they come on and talk. You let them talk, and then I'll come back after you see, I got all sussed here. I know what we're doing.
I know. Well, I just thought I'd dematerialize there for a second. I never can be sure as I see myself.
You just did dematerialize, and now we're getting the clickety clack 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 clickety clack clack clack. It's Nacy. See, I made you dematerialize, Jimmy. Less of it. You're dematerialized. You can't say nothing. Nacy, you're with us now. Are you here? Seance time.
I'm not 100% positive, but I do believe I am here.
You are
Thank
here. You are here. I thought for one moment there we were going to have some kind of digital seance. We were going to have to communicate via the spectral realm between the three of us there. You never know with Skype these days, guys. The Bush Telegraph might actually be a more solid connection. We can just broadcast directly into fellow Bush Telegraph minds. Oh, there's a thought. But no, all joking aside, we're going to get into the anniversary of Prince's death. 5 years. 5 years. And I remember when he did pass, we'd done a number of shows at the time. And as with any major musician, a whole load of controversy, stories, weirdness surrounding not just the passing, but the life and times of this dude that was at one time called Prince. And I don't know what he's called anymore. But Nacy, I'm going to come to you, dude, because this is somebody that you really, really, really have looked into. In fact, I've heard you sing in Purple Rain, and you're really, really, really good at it. So where do we start, Nacy?
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to get through this thing. Prince Roger Nelson. I was told, word on the street, that his actual name was Roger Prince Nelson, named after his father, but after all the notoriety, that it was swapped to Prince Roger Nelson. But that's just hearsay. as an individual who grew up in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. Of course, Prince is synonymous when it comes to Minnesota. And I cannot confirm or deny that in my junior year of high school that I may or may not have gotten a perm so I could look like the infamous Prince. And I wanted to create my first band, which was to be not my band, but to create a band that was to be a Prince cover cover band. So I definitely have really appreciated this entity's music. He was an icon on so many different levels. At the young age of 18 is when he was found, signed a contract with Warner Brothers. The guy has won Grammys. He's won Academies. He's, millions and millions of records sold. And he was a Minneapolis boy. And I actually cursed his name when I learned upon his demise, because it was right after that unknown celebration of the 20th of April that I'm not a super big fan of. But on that particular year, I was asked to give a speech about the date and how it deals with Mushkiki. And it, to me, was a pivotal moment for, since we're on this show, cannabis. And I was so excited because I'm thinking on the next day, there's going to be this new awakening towards cannabis and bringing it forward. But then all of a sudden, the following morning, no one discussed cannabis whatsoever, because Prince was found in his elevator at Paisley Park and pronounced dead. And it just totally derailed the whole cannabis culture at the time. And I think it ushered in what I call the Age of Aquarius, or the Purple Rain, not R-A-I-N, but the Reign of Terror. And how incredible, if you notice, purple is utilized in today's entertainment media and whatnot. And so Prince dies, and ironically, he dies on the Queen Mother's birthday. And the irony of it, the color that was selected particularly for this year happened to be purple. And so in the celebratory sense of the Queen's birthday, all of these places around the world were going to be illuminated in purple. And lo and behold, it correlates with Prince dying. And so word and rhetoric came out that, oh, look at what they're doing for Prince in Minneapolis. It was definitely a sad moment. I had a lot of friends, and I was actually on the precipice of going down to Paisley Park in Chanhassen to just experience it of what happened, and I feel that in my years of being part of this truth movement, or this looking over what's happening, I felt that Prince was definitely in the know of what was going on, because you could see so much iconography in his albums, in his music, and some of the images and whatnot that he put out there. So it was definitely interesting on so many different levels when he died on 5 years ago. Wow. Just crazy how time has passed. And even though that purple color has always been revered for the elitist. It's interesting when you look into the history of the purple dye and you find out that it stems from a little island in Europe, and it stems from a certain snail, and that from this snail they got the color purple, which was used for royalty. And when there were times when this dye could not be procured, then they would go to the royal blue or also the red. But there's so many different aspects that we can go down with Prince's existence. But I'd love to hear some of Jimmy's take and what you also know, Kev.
Absolutely, brother. And before I hand it to Jimmy to get his input on this here, I found a little thing like you mentioned, that the colour purple. And I remember, I think it might even have been during the 2012 London Olympics that there was people talking about purple. And just recently, I know Jimmy's going to be talking about how politicians and things, purple. And I found this here, and it's a good kind of just a quick 3 paragraphs about why purple is so synonymous when it comes to these families and ancient bloodlines. It says the colour purples ties into kings and queens dating back to ancient world, where it was prized for its bold hues and often reserved for the upper crust. The Persian king Cyrus adopted a purple tunic as his royal uniform, and some Roman emperors forbid their citizens from wearing purple clothing under penalty of death. Now, purple was especially revered in the Byzantine Empire, and its rulers wore flowing purple robes and signed their edicts in purple ink, and their children were described as being born in the purple. The reason for purple's regal reputation comes down to a simple case of supply and demand. For centuries, the purple dye trade was centred in the ancient Phoenician city of Tyre or Tyre in modern-day Lebanon. Now, the Phoenicians' Tyrian purple, not to be mistaken with Tyrion Lannister, came from a species of sneesail, just as our good friend Nace said, known as the Bolinus brandaris. And it was so exceedingly rare that it became worth its weight in gold. To harvest it, dye makers had to crack open the snail's shell, extract the purple produce in mucus, and expose it to sunlight for a precise amount of time. It took as many as 250,000 mollusks to yield just 1 ounce of usable dye. But the result was a vibrant and long-lasting shade of purple. And to conclude this, and we'll get Jimmy in then, it says clothes made from the dye were exorbitantly expensive. A pound of purple wool would cost more than people earned in a year, so they naturally became the calling card of the rich and powerful. It also didn't hurt that Tyrian purple was said to resemble the colour of clotted blood, a shade that supposedly carried divine connotations. The royal class purple monopoly finally waned after the fall of the Byzantine Empire in the 15th century, but the colour didn't become more widely available right up until the 1850s, when the first synthetic dyes hit the market. So there's some of the history to add to the kind of the colours and the purple that we're getting in today, Jimmy. But what do you think of what Nace had to say in opening up there? Because I know you were sharing with us before the show. You know your music. You know your Prince too. You know all the contracts. He mentioned Warner Brothers there. So what's your take, Jimmy?
Well, I mean, Prince had a very long and interesting career, and he went through a lot of peaks and valleys. There was times, when he first came out, you might even say Prince was really, there was a lot of androgyny that was going on in the 80s There's a lot of the new wave music, and a lot of the new wave, not punk, but new wave, sort of, futuristic. A lot of it was androgyny. They really tried hard to get the androgyny wave to kick off in the 80s, but it really just didn't take off. It kind of mostly stayed in a certain group of people. But Prince was really attractive to women for a lot of reasons, and so Prince was a real big, his
my
music.
Mom, dude, my mom was like, whoa, she still goes weak at the knees even thinking about Prince,
I know, and he had so much great music. Like, he was a prolific songwriter. Also, he was an innovator early on in his career with his stage setup, and the lighting that he had, and the way that he actually performed the shows early on in his career. He was really a groundbreaker in a lot of ways. He was groundbreaker in video on MTV. And he was a darling, like I say, of the establishment, because he was also, when I say he was a darling, I mean they used him to their advantage to promote their agenda. He happened to get caught up in it, and he was such a talented individual that he ended up making quite a bit of cheese. But it was under the name Prince, and these record companies, they do a lot of really nasty things to people in the record business. Like, for example, you could be in a band with 4 other people, and you all wrote the music and you all wrote the songs, but in the contract you didn't read it right and you didn't see it, and they put you in. There's only one guy on there. The rest of everybody else's names are called studio help or studio musicians. And you don't get any credit or any money for the publishing of that song from that point forward. And so guys don't know that. And so, as long as the money's rolling in, regularly, like paychecks, and you're doing gigs and stuff, you don't really notice it. But once the gigging stops and you start going, hey, where's my royalties, man? And they go, you don't get any, son. You're a studio musician. You were just a player. And so what happened was, these names, then the record companies, what they do to you is they bring you in. They say, okay, Prince, we really like you. Let's go over here. We're going to make an album. So they make an album, and the album ends up costing $150,000. And so they say, okay, Prince, you owe us $150,000 for this record. But tell you what, we're going to give you some money, and then you got to pay us back. That type of thing. So you go out, you go in, and you're under the gun. You're screwed. You're not gonna, you owe them 150G, but you're riding around in the car, you're living in the house, you know what I mean? You're flying around in the jets or whatever. The lifestyle doesn't change, but you owe them 150G now. So then what happens is they take control of everything. They take control of you. They take control of everything you do. They, depending on the contract that you're involved in, and the one that Prince was involved in, they actually took his name. So they owned his name. And the thing is that he could not now exit his contract with them and go do something else, or go get a different record contract, or go solo under his name Prince, because they owned the rights to whatever he did under the name Prince. So he put his name into a symbol. And that's when he changed his name to the symbol. And it wasn't that he was a freak, or, he was trying to change his name to a symbol, or, it wasn't anything weird like that. He was trying to exit stage left, and it was a big bitch slap to the industry when he did it, because they figured they had him by the cojones, but they didn't. And so he boned out.
To throw a little bit on top of what Jimmy was sharing. So here we have this 18-year-old musical genius. And in the Minneapolis scene, he gets a little bit of notarized, and then somebody sees him, and right away they see the potential of this 18-year-old kid, brings him out to Hollywood, and introduced him to some of the Warner Brother people. And lo and behold, as Jimmy said, they're like, yeah, we see the potential. Let's bring this guy in. Comes out with 3 albums. And then his ultimate hit in 1984, he comes out with Purple Rain, which just transcends all the different facets of the entertainment world. You know, because here is a movie, he's an actor, and music on top of it. And this is one of my first discotheques or danceterias is First Avenue in Minneapolis. I remember when people were trying to go to First Avenue and dress up all crazy, kind of new agey, you know, kind of like the new wave music, to try to get picked to go into First Avenue to be part of the extras. So in 1993, as Jimmy was talking about, Warner Brothers basically said, hey, Prince, you need to slow down on your albums, because Prince was just album after album after album. He was just a musical genius. And he wanted to put out music way more than the label did, because the label wants to make the most profit that they can. So they like to hold out, you know, a year, 2 years before an album comes out so they can get maximal profit on it and stuff. So Prince is like, forget this, you know. And so then he started writing the word slave, and he took on that iconic symbol as his name. And then he just put out like just Prince is a perfectionist. He's a hardcore perfectionist. And so he just whipped out a bunch of albums because that's what Warner Brothers wanted, and they were of less quality than what he usually put out there. And this kind of put the record label into a bind, because, you know, they want to make a profit too. And so they started negotiating, and it was a very exhausting fight between Prince trying to get back what he considered children, because he thought his music was his creation, that it was his property. And more times than not, people were amazed to find out that he didn't own Purple Rain, the rights on it. The only way that he could gain the rights of Purple Rain is for him to remaster the whole album and put it out. You know, so this was something that Warner Brothers was constantly making money off the artists. And this is a commonality that happens in the music industry, you know, that you are basically chewed up and spit out. And the only way that you can really get out of any kind of contracts is if you can get somebody else in under you and potentially make as much as you are making. This is that the rumors of the evilness that is happening in the entertainment world, especially the record industry, because, you know, ironically, there is the potential, I think, within this year that Prince is going to be releasing a new album and he's not alive. And this is one of the hugest controversies about his death, is that in his private vault, he has thousands and thousands of songs and videos and different types of things that he created there in Paisley Park. And the question is always, who owns those rights now? Because there's potential billions of dollars.
We're almost on the break, and you guys are knocking out the park here. I'm loving listening to this, because I'm not an aficionado on Prince or many other pop stars, but it says here, just like he said, Lost Prince album, Welcome to America, to be released in July. Yes, indeed. We'll be back after these short messages. Don't go anywhere. welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Second part of today's Kev Baker show with the quite brilliant Nacy and Jimmy Jeans, and they are telling us all about the artist once known as Prince, formerly known as Prince, and really giving us an insight not only into this artist's life, work, his passing, but we're getting a kind of glimpse into the music industry as a whole. And Jimmy's somebody that's been around that. And Nacy, you're somebody that's been in and around that. And you yourself, my friend, you do a good rendition of The Purple Rain. And was your band not almost signed up at one point, Nacy, or have I got you mixed up with someone else?
We were at the point when the band broke up, or actually when they ousted me. It got to the point of where I could no longer be a front man. I was having challenges walking on stage and being that presence. And we were at the point of where we were getting some notoriety and groupies, and we were talking to some people about signing and that. So, yeah, I was in the music industry in the Minneapolis area throughout the 90s. And I had 3 different occurrences where there were potentials of crossing Prince's path. The first story I'll share is while in high school, a dear friend of mine, she asked me, she's like, "You want to hang out with me this weekend? My mom wants me to go to her boyfriend's friend's birthday party." And I'm like, "Oh, that sounds like a blast. No, thank you." And I came up with an excuse not to go. And on the Monday, I asked her, I'm like, "So how was that party?" And she was like, "Well, we were at the prom center." And I, right away, as soon as she said the prom center, over the weekend, I said, "That was Prince's birthday party at the prom center on University in St. Paul." And she's like, "Yeah, my mom's boyfriend is involved with the band." And so I totally blew the opportunity to go to Prince's birthday party, which is June 7th, another June baby there, Kev. And so I missed out there. Another experience I had is in the Lumber Exchange building, there was a bar there where I was dancing, and I was dancing on the dance floor, and I get off the dance floor and I'm going to walk back to our booth, and I'm walking that way. Next thing you know, I'm stepping in front of like a 6'4", huge, massive of a guy. And he's like, "Where do you think you're going?" And I'm like, "To my booth." And he's like, "You can't go there right now." And I'm like, "The hell I can't. That's my booth. I've been there all night." And then he looks back, and then I look past him, and there in the booth next to us is Prince and his entourage. So apparently while I was dancing, Prince came in, they gave him the big corner booth, and we just happened to be the booth next to it. And then I pointed out to the guy, I'm like, "There's my leather jacket, there's my bag and stuff." And then he looks back, and then I don't know if it was Prince who said it, but somebody said, "Let him go." And the guy let me go, and then I got to sit in a booth for about 15, 20 minutes as he sat there. Then they got up and left. But that was...
That's a cool story, dude. That's a cool story. I like it. You've got an actual personal Prince story. But listen, before the break, we were getting maybe just cut off when I was backing up what Nacy was saying about a new album coming out. And it's an unreleased album from 2010. It's called Welcome to the Number 2 America. It says socially conscious title track from unreleased 2010 album can be heard now, criticizing Google, Apple, and celebrity culture. It's almost as if he was getting a glimpse into the future that we're all living now. And there's something about Prince and this visions into the future, like Jimmy was hinting at. Osama bin Laden getting ready to bomb. Now, admittedly, he was a known figure. They were already building him, you could say, at that point. He was being prepared to be the next global boogeyman. But was Prince, is he a fortune teller, Jimmy? Is he Nostradamus, guys? What's going on there?
Well, people on the inside got the inside track, don't they? A lot of people know what's going to happen before it happens, simply because they hear stuff, you know. So I don't know. It's interesting. It's an interesting idea, you know, behind Prince and a lot of this, and you know, it ties right into him going off the reservation, you know, because this was in 1998, not 88. So he was 3 years early on this as far as what he was saying. So you know, who knows? You could be at a cocktail party and you know, you hear things or whatever. So who knows? But he sort of tried to relay the fact that he was a truther in some ways, you know, and a lot of his music, you know, there's a lot of stuff in his music also, and it wasn't just, you know, he doesn't just play the type of music most people are aware of. If you're not a fan of Prince, he's got full-on jazz albums, all jazz, all blues. Where he's playing guitar. He's a brilliant guitar player. But when Prince was alive, you could not, I mean, because you guys both know what I do on my channel, so I'll just tell you, there was not a Prince song to be found anywhere on that internet. And while Prince was alive, there was nothing. I mean, they were on it like immediately. And so I think he had a whole team of people that just sat around making sure nobody uploaded a Prince song on the whole out of the whole internet, and that's what they did. And there was nothing. So if you wanted Prince, you had to go get a CD down at the store, if there still are any. But hey, I got a story about Prince too, because he played a show up in Oakland, and when I was working in Palo Alto, Keystone. The manager of our club and his wife went up to see the Prince show up in Oakland, and they were blown away by it. And so the manager of our club went back and they booked Prince to do a show at our club, because this is before, you know, he was doing stadiums or whatever. And it was interesting because they booked him to do the show, and it was a no-show. In other words, the show was on the calendar. He was supposed to be there, and he never showed up for the gig. And it was because back then, you know, he wasn't all clean and sober like he purported to be towards the end of his life. Back then, he was still doing dope. And when I say dope, I mean heroin. That's what dope means when I say that. So, you know, but he cleaned himself up, you know, and he got past the contract thing, and then he's out there speaking out, revealing some of this stuff. And then they say, I know that you had found quite a bit of controversy around the actual death of Prince. I mean, wasn't there a lot of talk back then about snow in September and that song?
Well, what you're talking about, ironically, in 1985, I think it was, he released a song called April Snow. And the song is about how sometimes it snows in April, and it's about the death of somebody. Now, the day before Prince died, the last, I can't remember if it was a Twitter feed or his Instagram, the last thing that he put out there was, just when you thought you were safe, was the last thing that he put out there socially. Another thing that occurred on the morning of his death, one of his feeds, he used to wear a pair of these glasses that had a representation of the third eye. And on one of his social networks, he had these glasses, but the third eye was always closed. On the day of his death, the third eye was open. When he died, he was found in his elevator. It is known that his reference to the elevator was the devil coming to get you, to take you down. On the day of his death, everybody kept talking about, you know, this song, Let's Go Crazy, and I Would Die for You. So in Let's Go Crazy, one of the lyrics is, If the elevator tries to take you down, go crazy, punch a higher floor. Ironically, his death is in the elevator. Also, in his song, I Would Die For You. Is this prophetic? The number 4 is the 4th April. The letter U is the 21st letter of the alphabet. I would die for you, April 21st. And if I may give out a shout out to my incredible mother, happy birth recognition date, because this is also my mother's birth recognition date. So the controversies over Prince's death are just so extreme, and this is the challenge when it comes to the entertainment world. If you do not follow what you are told to do you all of a sudden find yourself in an overdose situation, in a suicided situation? Because Prince, like I was saying, with his iconography and his symbolism, he was seemingly revealing things to the masses, to where he was like challenging it. His song, Darling Nikki, which was a very prerogative song. I used to joke about being in high school when Prince came out, and the sexual revolution of the 80s, where everybody have intercourse, that was Prince. Prince was pushing this whole hypersexualization of what was going on at the time, and Darlin' Nikki was a very provocative song, to the point of where, what was her name? Tip O'Neill, with the parental guidelines. They actually were saying that this is like one of the top songs that should have a parental suggestion on it, to where they were starting to stamp CDs and albums with, hey, strong content in these lyrics, be leery of it. So there's many different facets when you see Prince crossing over all of these different realms of the entertainment world.
Yeah, I mean, that's what, that's kind of what I was alluding to earlier, because see, once the system has a vehicle, they let the vehicle do the talking as far as the social engineering track or the soundtrack of a generation. So as far as the sexual revolutionizing of a generation, this was the culmination of a mindset that had been put forward in the 60s, and then you had dropped into this next phase where ideas that were put forward were coming back around again. And you see this androgyny pop up with Prince, where he's crossing over between men and women. Both men and women adore Prince in certain ways. The thing about Prince is, and the sexual aspect of it is, I mean, you can go back and look at a lot of his. I want to point specifically to one of the reasons that Prince got so big, and it's not because he's a genius, which he is. I'm not saying he isn't. And I'm not saying that he can't write hit songs with hooks, because he does. But the thing is one of the things about it is that he was put forward by the system specifically and used by the system. And when you're a vehicle, when you're a pop vehicle, like look back at the Beatles, everybody talks about it. It's a pop vehicle. Of course, if Paul dies in a car crash, you need to keep your franchise going, man. You got to put somebody else in there looks just like Paul, then have them all grow beards or whatever until everybody forgets what he looks like. You know what I mean? So the thing is, man, look, when you become a limited liability corporation under one of these record contracts, you're under contract. Your name is under contract. You are under contract. So let me ask you a question. How much money do you think people make off selling records after somebody dies? Quite a bit, right? probably almost more than they made when they were alive, huh? So let me see. If I own a pop culture programming vehicle that I put in a heavy rotation on every radio station, okay, what's the natural inclination they're going to be? They're going to utilize that. And one of the big reasons he got big was because it was right at the moment when MTV took off. And MTV took off, and all of a sudden, video became very influential on a generation. And that movie was so big, Purple Rain, and that song was in the movie, which is the reason it got so big. Because not only was it in the movie where everybody went in droves to see and stood in line, you know, and dressed up, but it was getting hammered on the radio, and people were running down and buying records. The soundtrack to Purple Rain, you know, and it is a Purple Rain, but the studio owns that. See, so hey man, your contract's up, buddy.
Yeah, and that is absolutely one of the challenges when as an artist, when you create your music, you know, whether it be guitar, drums, whatever, when you create your adding to it, you know, you have to know in advance that you relinquish that. You know, and being at such a very young age, 18, you know, why do you think they ask 18-year-olds to join the military? Because they're so impressionable at that age. You know, we think we're inhuman and that we're going to survive forever and the world is our oyster. You know, so it's really easy to get these young artists to participate in this game. And then after a while, when they start realizing the game they're in, they want to get out of it. And this is where Prince, and this is the biggest strangeness, I think, about the whole Warner Brothers relationship. When you follow it and you see how Prince goes through so much stuff to get out of the contracts, and then lo and behold, before he dies, I think it was 2016, he goes back into contract with Warner Brothers.
Well, here's what happens, man. When you go off the reservation, here, let's point at some. Britney Spears, she went off the reservation, right? Well, what happens to her? She can, at that point, Britney Spears could end up like Whitney Houston, or it can be she can go through door number 2, which is shave your head, pretend you've gone insane, and go over there and sit in the corner until we call you back. And you better do what we say, and you better jump how high when we say jump. Because it's no game. This is dollars and cents, man. This is money. And they don't play games. And if you're not, listen, they don't put you out there at heavy rotation unless you're saying what they want you to say. Listen, this model was built early on. The music business used to be on the East Coast. They had a music business for the white music, and they had a music business for the black music, the Motown music. These contract ideas and these ways of milking people and burning them out of their money, it's been going on the whole time. That's the whole reason there was a gate to keep you out. Because the only way to make music popular is to get it played on radio stations, because every single person, just like we all have phones now, everybody had radios. Everybody could tune in. You could hear it, but you'd only hear it when they play it. And now, they're calling in for it, man. They're, the phones are burning up. And they say they're calling in. Yeah, sure they are. No, they're not. There's nobody calling in. It's them making you think someone's calling in. So then they can hammer. It's called psychic driving. You can hammer, let's go crazy over and over again and 1,000,000 times in that song. Let's go crazy. Okay, that's psychic driving. Yeah, let's go crazy. Well, what about, let's take a look at some lyrics that Prince wrote. There's a song called Get Off. Take a look at that video. What's happening to Prince right when the doors open on that party that's going on, and he performed that live on stage at the Grammys. Seriously. So
Well, that is where it really starts getting into like the bizarreness and the weirdness, and you could maybe even correlate it to like the Beatles, how allegedly in their album covers that they were trying to release information. This is seemingly a little bit of what Prince was doing with some of these shows that he did, or these special appearances, like when he did the Super Bowl in Chicago, and the irony of how it rained while he's doing his epic Purple Rain song during the Super Bowl. You know, it's counted as one of the best Super Bowl halftime shows ever. You know, but how do you get picked to be part of the Super Bowl? You know, this goes back to this whole entertainment of, if you're willing to play the game, you're going to go far. It's that basically simple. And if you're not willing to play the game, something just might happen.
And playing the game is the deal with the devil. So that's the deal with the devil that they say, that everybody talks about. When you make the deal with the devil, that means, you know what, man? I'm willing to sell myself. I'm willing to sell my soul to do this, to be a music star, to be an actor. You sell your soul in a lot of ways, and it doesn't even have to be literal, but you could take it literal. You could say anybody who gets in the music business or the entertainment business literally gets bent over by the desk by Satan and showing them 1-2 punch. Because listen, we gave you the chance to be here, okay? And if you don't want to say what we told you to say, you're gonna have an accident. Contract's up. I'll make 10 times more money than I ever made off you when you were alive. And you know what? Coming up, I got some 3D holograms that are just going to replace you just like that. So don't even get smart with me. You just go over there and say what I tell you to say.
Before we get to the break then, I'm liking this, the deal with the devil. I'm thinking, probably the deal with the devil, if it was a paper contract, it would be signed, and they say, in purple ink, right? Because it's the purple rain, REIGN, as opposed to rain, wet stuff. Is the purple rain, is that the rain of the other side that we're talking about here, the side that you do the deal with,
Yeah.
Is that where we're going?
That's where I would speculate it. And if you take any moments and look into the entertainment industry and look up the Rain Man and how that term is utilized throughout the music industry, it to me, it speculates that there is some kind of entity, semantics on what you want to call it, but a deal is being made. Mm-hmm. And you can hear many artists talk about more or less selling their souls, straight out. I think it was Crosby. I think from Crosby, Stills and Nash. I can't remember which one it was, but one of them came straight out and said, "Yeah, I sold my soul to the main man, the big man."
Well, I've kind of pulled up something here. It's a blog. It's really quick, but it says the behind the music. Who is the Rain Man? It's talking about Rihanna's song, The Umbrella. And it says, Rain Man is the term for the, quote, above man that showers us with blessings. Although this might sound as Jesus, this is not the one they mean. And it goes on to say that, so from now on, be aware that the term Rain Man, Rain, and Umbrella, as they refer to artists paying homage to the ultimate musician, the boy that got kicked out the choir, we're told, right? The devil. For their music, Jimmy. There you go.
Yeah, well, the devil seems to be everywhere, isn't he?
It's in the details, dude. The devil is always in the details, and in the details, I see a break coming. I want you to have a chance to tell people when they can catch you next, when you're on the Aftermath. Tell people where to go, bro.
Well, tonight I'm going to be on with Charlie Robinson.
Charlie!
On Slow News Day on Rockfin. We're going to be on Slow News Day's channel. I don't know what we're going to talk about. Steve is the is the host, and I'm going to be over there with Charlie. So it's on Rockfin. And then tomorrow night, Aftermath Media, I have 2 live shows, 6 o'clock Pacific, live right before Clyde. Want to put a word out. Wes has taken ill, and they haven't been around for a couple of days. So they think that maybe.
Yeah. Big shout out to Wes. I was catching their update from the graveyard. Typical Ground Zero. I love you guys, Ron, Clyde. Big shout out. But we'll be back for hour number 2. Purple Rain under the purple rain. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, everyone. Second half of today's Kev Baker Show right here on TFRLive.com. Don't forget, coming up right after today's show, we've got Lucky with Quantum Connection. So with that said, we're talking about the purple rain under a purple rain. We're getting into Prince, all things Prince. I want to backtrack a little because I took a note. I didn't want to kind of knock the guys off the brilliant conversation they were having. But a real weirdity, a real oddity that I find from the passing of Prince. And after we get into this, we can take it any direction you want, guys. But Nacy, you mentioned the whole elevator thing. I think we done a show on this before. In fact, I think it may have been around the time of his passing. And I think you were the one person that really clued me into some of the things that Prince put in his music. Some of the kind of things he explained. And this elevator, the kind of journey downwards, the spiral, to do the deal maybe perhaps, and the fact he passed in an elevator, can't get away from that synchronicity, dude. Talk to us more about that, what you make of that, Nacy, and then Jimmy as well.
Hey, I wanted to say something just for a second, because I want to say, even if you don't believe, listen, even if you do not believe that someone literally sells their soul to the devil in the music business, if you're an artist and you have to put up with what goes on, metaphorically, your soul has been given up. And when you give up your ability to be a free creating artist and get put into a machine and cranking out what the machine wants you to crank out, and they say.
You there, Nacy? There he is.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And sometimes it even goes deeper when you find out some of the ideology of the entertainment world is that there are, as we look at the Goyim, where there are entities, whether you want to call them angels or demons, but entities that supposedly are the manifestation of the muse or the artistry in it, and that they will literally attempt rituals for these artists to open themselves up and allow these other spirits to enter them. One of these entities they proclaim is the Prince has referred to himself as Christopher Tracy. And there is some speculation that this is his alter ego, that when he taps into it, and Jimmy, I'm sure you can attest to this, and I've been there, when you are so in the moment, when you're performing your music, that you're literally not there. You're like somewhere else, and then all of a sudden the song's done, and all of a sudden you're back, and you're just kind of like, okay, did I just check out a little bit right there?
Well, you know, another thing too is you see a lot of people in the alternative media, and they point. I mean, there's whole industries, you know, it's a cottage industry to take one of these shows or one of these stage events and point out the significance of the occulted magic or whatever that's behind it all. And then the person who's actually doing the performance, they get thrown into the mix too. Like, It's like it's like people think Britney Spears is sitting in her dressing room back there sketching on a pad the evil devil worshiping backdrops that she wants to have on her set. Now, Britney Spears shows up a little bit before the show, puts on her makeup, goes out, lip syncs, and then goes back away. And everybody else is in charge of what goes on, what symbolisms on the record company's record, what how everything is presented has nothing to do with the artist. And I'll even put forward a lot of these artists now, because really they're just, once we've gotten to a place where Milli Vanilli got caught lip syncing and lip syncing got out there and blah, blah, blah. Well, people really don't mind Britney Spears jumping around a short dress lip syncing. And so once lip syncing became good and all good, then really what you're looking for is an actor. You're looking for somebody who can jump. Man, you cannot jump around and sing normal, because you go when you're jumping around. There's no way it can happen. Lip syncing. Okay, listen, these artists, they're just like everybody else. A lot of the artists, some of those songs, there was stuff in there. They were saying stuff in there. Look back at some of the lyrics and some of the earlier rock songs during the 70s. See what they were talking about. It's not like they were promoting it. Maybe they were trying to warn you. It's not necessarily that they're into it. Maybe they're writing these lyrics to tell you about it. Maybe. Never know. But I'll just say this. In 2021, no artist is in charge of their career once they become popular. There's a whole machine back there. And all you do is show up with your black credit card somewhere. That's about it.
That's about it. Well, let me bring up another thing then. And I don't know if this is right or wrong. I'll get you guys to talk to that. But I'm pretty sure I'm on the right track when I say that there was a bit of weirdness going on with Prince as well when it came to sometimes writing the music, sometimes how it came to him. And I've heard a story, it might have been you, Nacy, might have been Jimmy, could have been Lucky as well. I think Lucky called into the show with this one. But talk of how he and Michael Jackson, they had an interesting kind of relationship. And the story, to kind of paraphrase it and boil it down real quickly, is if either one of them, Michael or Prince, were to say felt inspiration at 3 a.m. while they were taking a dump and a new piece of music would come to them, they would have their people right then, right there, go and make sure that it was their music, it was theirs, right? Because the theory was that if one was picking up on a new track, a new sound, a new song, the other one was picking up something that sounded very similar. Now, am I going mad, Nacy? Is this a thing? Were these people tapping into the Akashic records for their music? Was it coming through these people as if they were vessels? What's going on, dude?
Well, that was absolute that both artists allegedly, well, I know Prince did. He had a on-call band to where, if he woke up in the middle of the night or if he was traveling somewhere and something stuck in his head, he'd, pick up the phone or have somebody pick up the phone and say, studio now, no matter what time it was, night or day. And they were obligated to go to the studio, and they may find themselves in the studio for 3-4 days, punching out whatever this latest creativity is. And it almost seemed like there was this race, especially between Prince and Michael Jackson, because of, as you stated, being able to tap into that ethos, the ether, and pick this music out of it. So if we go back to the whole speculation that these individuals are willing to do ceremonies, rituals to tap into that record, what happens when you open yourself up? What happens when you open a portal? It means something can go out and something can come in. So are we going to want to open that portal?
Good question. Jimmy, I know you're wanting to jump in here.
Yeah, let me open a portal.
Oh, he's a wizard. He can do this, folks. He can literally do this.
Okay, let's go back to the 50s, because 50s was an important time, and it was a time when technology was being developed. some of the technology that we talk about today with targeted individuals, for example, this beaming of signal into individual skulls. Now, I want to point to an actress well known to everyone. Her name is Lucille Ball. Okay, if you're a millennial, she was on a show called I Love Lucy. Okay, it's basically the show that every other sitcom in the world is based on. Pretty much all the same gags and all this. But anyways, the point being, Lucille Ball used to hear radio signals in her head. She would hear radio signals of a local radio station in her head. And she went to the doctors about it and this and that. And what they determined the reason being was that it was because her fillings in her head were making the radio tower signals, go inside of her skull. So now we know, for example, that maybe certain people have a tendency of making it. In other words, certain bloodlines are in these tight circles who end up being celebrities. And if you're of that certain bloodline, would it not be possible then to assume that, let's say, if you were in the stable and you were artists like Prince and Michael Jackson, and they need a specific type of hook or beat to come out in one of your songs? I mean, rather than just telling you to do it, how about they just give you the idea etherically, and you're just a node on the record company's network? That's about it. What about that?
Well, I will attest to that. When I was going through what I do to try to stay alive with the condition that I'm living with, I had all of my metal fillings taken out. And when I went to the dentist to get them removed, he grabbed one of his tools, and when he touched the tool to my mental filling, I heard the radio in my head. So I know exactly what you're talking about. And I jumped back, which is hard to do in the dentist chair because you got the headrest that you're leaned against. And he was startled and he's like, "What's up?" And I'm like, "I just heard the radio," because it freaked me out. And he's like, "What?" I said, "I literally just heard the radio when you touched my tooth." And he did it again. And sure enough, there was a radio station that wasn't a mile and a half away from the dentist's office, and we were able to turn the dial, and it was what I was hearing. So if you think about it, heavy metals in the body can work as an antenna. Then if we go into the way woo, think of nanotechnology. If they can have us swallowing nanotechnology and they link together in a chain in our synapses, they're basically making an antenna array.
Well, your DNA is nanotechnology. And I'd put forward that people that have a certain DNA type may be extra creative people. I don't know. I haven't researched it to see. But I do know this. We've done quite a bit of work on, music in itself, and how to entrain and entrance. And, the Grateful Dead is a really good example of entrainment and entrancement. I mean, they used to create literally with the sound system they had, they would create a standing wave on stage. And if you notice, only certain people follow the Grateful Dead, but they followed them until the ends of the earth. And it's the same way. Certain people are susceptible to certain vibrational frequencies and others aren't. So some people love the dead, some people hate the dead. Either way, when you've been decided out of the realm of the people that are following the dead, but here's what happened, and I have tape of this too to prove it. I have the documents. One of the members of the Grateful Dead, Bob Weir, used to have a show called We're Here. His name's Weir, so it was We're Here. And they were talking about a box set that was going to be released. And during the conversation, somebody brings up this Cornell concert that happened. And then Bob Weir says, "Oh, wait a minute. That show never happened." And the guy goes, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, people thought they were at that show, but they really weren't. We were at a studio in California playing, and people thought they were at a concert." And then he literally goes into this whole explanation of these guys walking around giving away these free hats to people. And then, on further investigation, there was that we did, there's a tie-in between Disney and this 50,000 watt AM station that was literally in vicinity to this concert that never happened. So it's interesting to note that, these things are definitely possible. And, as far as the music business goes, and as far as using music as an entrainment mechanism, I'm just like everybody else. I love music. I love music, but songs are memes. And when you think about it, think how a song is a meme and how it unzips a whole file of information in your head and can bring you back. When you hear Purple Rain, I say Purple Rain, and it's a meme that unzips in your head about Prince and all the stuff that's going on. I mean, what we're talking about today. Prince is a meme. When I say Prince, do you think of Prince Harry or do you think of the purple one? See, it's an unzipped file. The minute I say it, it triggers the unzipping, and you get a download of everything that you know about Prince. Go ahead.
What do you think, Nacy? What do you get when somebody says Prince? I imagine you get the download.
Oh, absolutely. But that's just the whole, experience of my life. I can't confirm or deny that I may have all of his albums since 2006, I would say. But the bizarreness of Prince's whole experience. There was at one point in 1997, he scrapped an entire launching where they spent millions of dollars to launch an album that was called The Funk Bible. And it was during this time, as Jimmy was talking about, where allegedly Prince was experimenting with different types of drugs or narcotics or parties or whatever. And he scrapped this entire album because he came out and said that I felt like I was possessed during the creation of this album, and he wanted to disassociate himself with that. Ironically enough, in 1996, he got married to Mai Tai, or some people call her Mai Tai, and they had a child. The child, shortly after its birth, died. Shortly after this, Prince and Mai Tai had an interview with Oprah where they acted like nothing was wrong. And this is literally within a month after their child dies. Prince also had an album that was about to be released, Emancipation. So here...
That's a good album.
Yes. And here, I cannot connect whatsoever and understand, as a father losing a child, and he put it out there that it's part of his religion. He was a Jehovah's Witness, and because of this upbringing that they don't have the same solidarity with the medical industrial complex as a lot of people do, and so because of this, this is the whole speculation of why the child died and stuff like that. But part of me goes down that rabbit hole of, what are you willing to give for your continuous fame? There is one rapper that gave an interview shortly after his death, and they asked him about it, and I can't remember the rapper. He said Prince got exactly what he deserved because the devil comes a-calling.
That's what I was saying earlier. That's what I was saying earlier. If you make it and somebody tells you to do something and you don't do it, you may not come back. I mean, Britney Spears, she came back, but other people didn't come back. I'm just saying, look, Jim Morrison died, right? He died. Oh yeah, he died. He drank himself to death. He died of, Oh yeah. Well, his contract was up, man. I mean, now his name's not Jim Morrison anymore. Now it's Bill Smith, and he lives in BFE. Nowhere's Bill. And he better not show up again, or else he'll have a visit from some dudes in some black vans. Better not come out and try to go sing a song somewhere. You know what we told you. Contract's up. So contract's up, time's up. We're in 2021. Guess what? You know what they can do now? They discovered the lip syncing works so well with the singers. They moved the lip syncers right over into the political arena. And they got a bunch of people up there. All they do is read teleprompters. They're just actors. They're just lip syncers. They're just people going through the motion. Just some dummy, some wax dummy to parade up there and spit it all out for everybody. And now in 2021, we have a future to look forward to where they can literally create pop stars that don't even exist. They could literally demographically take your temperature, figure out exactly who would be attractive to you and how they would be attractive, what kind of voice they would need to have, what kind of beats would need to be played, and generate some, etheric figure that doesn't even exist, but does videos, does concerts. People are there in the concert. It looks like a concert.
My daughter is into K-pop, and she has informed me that there is a holographic K-pop group out there that is totally generated and created, but it's no group.
Yeah, there's a number that I know they are probably the one you're talking about. There's a couple of them actually. There's one that's when it goes on tour, it's a hologram. It's totally holographic. There's huge crowds like you would see back in the day at physical concerts, and they're all going crazy over this digital artist, literally a virtual artist, and like Jimmy mentioned earlier on as well, we've already seen this. I mean, I think, I might be wrong, I think Whitney Houston's going on tour this year, and you're probably thinking, Kev, how can Whitney Houston be going on tour? She's gone. Well, she might be gone, but her digital images aren't, and they're going to be stringing them together, and there's going to be a live, albeit holographic, posthumous from the grave performance. And we've already we've already had other artists doing this as well, living and dead ones.
Well, even if they're created artists, and let's say we're in virtual reality, we're all sitting at home with our goggles on. It could be a completely fake concert experience. There is no people. There is no one. There is no concert. It costs money to put a concert on, man. See? Once you eliminate this other aspect of it, see the live aspect or the live person aspect of it, you got to deal with people. They cop attitudes. They go off the reservation. You got to pay them all the time. They're pesky paychecks. When you create a digital artist, boom, everything's green screen. You got no set. You got no insurance. You got no sound system. You got no engineers. You got nothing except some dude sitting somewhere, back thing hitting play. Boom. And, cost you $100 to go to that concert. And you got a virtual reality headset on, man, and it's just like you're there. You're sweating. I mean, Kev, you played that song that was written by Metallica. There's Metallica AI. It was completely written by an AI. It sounds better than any music Metallica's put out in years to me.
Well, you wouldn't know the difference. You definitely wouldn't know the difference now. Not the levels it's got to. You're absolutely right, Jimmy. Now, we're almost on a break. Last segment still to go here. Nacy, after the break, what direction do you want to take this in? If there's anything else you've got on Prince, and then, of course, Jimmy's got lots of stuff he can throw into the mix here along the way as well, but where would you like to take it after the break, Nacy?
Well, I just wanted to add a little bit to that. I was watching a Netflix series called BoJack Horseman, and it's a cartoon, and it's kind of bizarre in itself. But in this cartoon, they talked about scanning, because Joe Horseman is a character, an actor, and in it they talked about how they scanned his image, and they then now owned his image. Ironically enough, shortly after that, Carrie Fisher from Star Wars franchise passed on. And then you start finding out that Carrie Fisher sold her digital image to the whole Star Wars franchise, and was starting to talk about majority of all of those images weren't even her, but a body double where they just basically green screened in Carrie Fisher.
You've got Robin Williams as well, Jimmy. He put it in his kind of last will and testament that his digital images were not to be kind of played about with and used. So this digital rights thing,
I'm glad this is where Nace wants to go on the other side of the break, because this is the biggest issue in the entertainment business going right now, is your digital image and how to deal with that.
And so that last Super Bowl that occurred in Minnesota, Prince said that you cannot use my images for anything, for profiting or anything. And there was actually fighting about using Prince's image.
Hold that thought,
during.
Hold that. Welcome back, everyone. Final segment of today's Kev Baker Show with Jimmy, Nace, and myself here. And of course, we'll hand over to Lucky right after the break. More live radio on the way on TFRlive.com. Today we're getting into Prince. Before the break, we were talking about digital rights, digital artists. I think one of the main ones I can think of off the top of my head that we probably all know of is the Gorillaz. You know, the Gorillaz, there's one that you could throw in there as being a digital concoction. And I know this is where the guys want to take it now, so I'm going to come to you first, Nace. And then Jimmy's got a lot to say on this subject as well. But digital rights, Nace, over to you, man.
Well, before we went on the break, we were talking about the latest Super Bowl that happened in Minnesota and Minneapolis, where they used Prince's likeness. Now, there was a lot of controversy brought about this because Prince said that no one had any legal right to use his image, whether it be in a holograph or even a picture of his. And so there was a big uproar when of course, in Minneapolis, you know, and they did the purple and the colors and everything, and Justin Timberlake, you know, they did the rituals, they did the ceremonies, and it goes into this question now about with this this new world that we're in, where our images and data of our images is being collected time and time again. I recall when they were talking in the 90s that all they needed was 15 minutes of you talking, and they can mimic your voice. So how difficult now in the technological advanced state we're in, where they could comprise all of these images of you, and lo and behold, there's a video of you saying whatever they program for you to say. And how do we validate this now?
Well, it falls under a category called personality rights. So the right is of an individual to control the commercial use of one's identity, such as name, image, likeness, and other unequivocal identifiers. It is generally considered a property right as opposed to a personal right, and such as the validity of the right publicity can survive the death of an individual to a varying degree depending on jurisdiction. So let's talk about this. This is important. And the reason it's important is because let's say you're a celebrity and you've reached a certain amount of status, okay? You're not really doing movies anymore. But, you know, you're still in the public eye. You're still somebody people are interested in seeing what the hell's going on with you. And let's say you could sell the Kev Baker experience, for example. So
God forbid.
So what the purveyor of the service would do, Kev, is they would have you wear some gear and, you know, basically go through your day. So imagine you're like, now let's take it away from Kev for a second because I don't want to, you know, get graphic about Anne. So let's change it to who would some man like to be? Well, would he want to be like, say, for example, Brad Pitt, for example? He's married to Angelina Jolie, you know? So, what if Brad Pitt sold you the Brad Pitt experience where you could be Brad Pitt? You could wear your 3D headgear. You know, you're basically you're there. You're feeling it. You know, you eat dinner with Angelina. You guys sit around at the fireplace after dinner. Maybe you make out a little bit. Maybe go upstairs and have sex. Oh, wait a minute. You want to go upstairs and have sex? Boot! It stops right there. Oh, you want to go upstairs? Don't worry. We got you, man. It's going to cost you another $150 though, if you want to go upstairs. And so you could turn that into a cottage industry. And so people have and let's just take that away. Okay, now you're dead. Let's say you're dead. Look, you just take some movie that you made in the past. Boom! All of a sudden, James Dean's making movies again. You know, hey, here comes Marlon Brando in his prime. Just came out with a new movie. I mean, you know why? I mean, they reuse songs over and over again. You know what I mean? They reuse plots over and over again. They already know that Marlon Brando got popular and famous once before. So wouldn't the next natural step be to just create a new movie with Marlon Brando in his prime? Doing something else? I mean, what's to stop him from doing it? Nothing. And that's the problem that people are having right now and moving into the future in the entertainment business, because if you're a live, breathing celebrity, living or dead, people have the ability to make money off of your image. And you can. And right now, there's really nothing anybody can do about it because there's, you know, this is an unprecedented situation because it's never existed before. And so because of that, we're going to see. I think this will be a big conversation moving into the future as far as any, you know, entertainment business talk goes, because, you know, who wouldn't want to be one of these celebrities for a day?
Me. I wouldn't. I've got no inclination. Listening to you talking about and fill in the blank experience. No. Now I can see how there will be deviants and others out there who would absolutely love to have just the experience of being anyone interacting with either females or males or any other of the specifications that people now come in. Of course there is. There's always going to be an industry for that kind of shenanigans going on. But to answer your question, Jimmy, who wouldn't want that? Me. There's no one out there I want to take a day in the life of.
What if Brad had or let's just pretend, I won't use a name so you won't tie it to anything specific. What if this celebrity had a website specifically designed for the experience, and they went on there and they said, hey, guess what? I got invited to this really great party tonight in Hollywood. Yeah, man, it's going to be masks. People are going to be having sex everywhere. Yeah, man, it's going to be X-rated, boy. It's going to be those parties you always heard about, right? So come on over to the website. Go ahead.
There's websites for that already. There's porn websites, dude. You're not describing anything that doesn't exist.
But you'd be in the room with all the only difference would be that all the people in the room.
You do know there's like VR porn and things now as well, dude. I mean, that's already catered for. That ship sailed.
No. You don't understand. See, the thing is, it's all speculation. Everybody speculates about these parties.
Well, I'm
What if-
judging there wouldn't. Well, true, these parties, the ones you're talking about, probably. But again, to answer your question, for me personally, it sounds like Creepville what you're describing, and I wouldn't be queuing up on that website.
And I
Dude,
have public performance anxiety.
Hey, she put out Gwyneth Paltrow put out a candle, okay, that smelled like her personal scent.
You certainly did, yep.
I won't get into it, but I'm just saying they sold out. See, I mean, I'm just saying maybe you're not into it and I'm not into it and Naysay's not into it and most of the audience isn't into it, but a lot of people will be into it. And it doesn't have to be that. It could be anything. It could be climbing a mountain. It can be, whatever, swinging on a rope on a pirate ship, whatever it is, a 3D image and the ability to create a reality out of what they have now, but just looking at the deep fake.
Deep fakes. Let me pull it back then, right? Because now we're getting into rock climbers and mountain climbing experiences, and it's interesting. It's cool, but I need to get the end of the Prince. I want to find out if there's anything more on Prince before we leave today. And they say, I know you had booked up this show like way. I'd forgotten you'd even booked this show, dude. You had this date in your calendar. You'd earmarked it. And I would hate to think we wrapped up. We've only got about 17 minutes to go. So if there's anything else you want to get out there, throw it out now, and then we can just shoot from the hip until the end of the show. How's it sound, man?
Well, the artist, if you separate the art from the artist, it is prolific. He was one of my top 5 favorite artists. His mastery of the guitar. I remember watching an Eddie Van Halen interview, and they asked him who he thought was one of the best guitarists, and without skimming a beat, he said Prince. The guy was incredible. Was he the best? I don't know. I haven't checked out everybody, but he definitely had his worth. Now, the sadness is, as you were saying, that you would not want that notoriety. At one moment, I thought I did, because I was, as a kid, I was a thespian and performing, and I never had a challenge with being in front of an audience and a crowd. And at one point, I thought I wanted what I call the golden ticket syndrome or the Cinderella syndrome, where you want some pivotal moment to thrust you into something different than where you're at. But the music of Prince is incredible, and it's not always somebody's bag. I kind of stopped listening to Prince after 2007. It just was too much for me. Because I actually, well, to be absolutely forthright, I thought that Prince was cloned in 2003 when he came out with a jacket. On the back of his jacket, he had the number 32 on the jacket, but then he put 2 1s right next to the 32. And if you look up Spooky Electric is the demon that Prince alleged took over him. But if you look up Spooky Electric, it's a really good YouTube channel where she goes into extensive detail about the Warner Brothers contract and Prince's entirety of the life. And it gets a little bit into the woo, where she also talks about, tapping into Prince on the ethereal plane. Speculation of what happened to him, I don't know. I don't know, I don't know if he died, if he overdosed, if he was suicided, or if they said, hey, Prince, you can go back to your home planet. Nothing would surprise me in today's world, but if you do get the opportunity to experience his music, check it out, because it is enjoyable. And and don't just try one album, because as Jimmy was talking earlier, he has such a plethora, and he goes over many genres with his music. So take the opportunity to experience it, and hopefully you'll enjoy it as much as I have. I still listen to Prince, and more so than my daughters want to hear it. But I still do enjoy Prince, and I still do enjoy music, even though the music industry has turned me off to where I have to separate the artist from the art, because there's something about music that will resonate with your core. It's music that can make you happy or make you sad just from a song. So, be in the moment when you listen to your music, and, enjoy it while you can.
Absolutely, brother. What you want to add to that, Jim?
Well, I just want to say, I enjoy Prince's music quite a bit. And I have to separate the artist from the business of it, because a lot of what I look at is the business end of it, and so, Prince, like what we're saying, is a prolific songwriter, and there's literally all his materials on the internet now. There's nothing stopping it. But he's like, it's like Michael Jackson. When he passed away, there was a vault of material that he wasn't available then, and we're going to see, I think, some releasing of some material from Prince that wasn't available before. Maybe even some videos will come out of just him just talking, that people don't even know about yet. So we'll see. I'm really excited to be here, Kev, with you and Naysay today, talking about Prince and the music business, and
yeah, it's been good. It's been good, but I think we'll, maybe this will shed some light on what you said there, Jimmy, because we'll go back to what he's going to be releasing, or what's going to be released in his name. I think it's interesting already how this talks about, criticizes likes of Google, Apple, and celebrity culture. So it says, an unreleased Prince album recorded in 2010, Welcome to America, will finally be heard in July. The late funk star's estate has partnered with Sony label Legacy Recordings to release the archived material, one entry in a vast archive of unreleased recordings. And the title track has been released, a loping, spacey funk song with spoken word lyrics that feature a typically arch and withering examination of a U.S. characterized as the land of the free, home of the slave, harking back to the early 1990s when Prince cast himself as enslaved to his record label Warner. Now, famously resistant to internet culture, Prince frames the US as being, quote, where everything and nothing that Google says is hip, and subject to digital surveillance, its citizens, quote, distracted by the features of the iPhone, hook up later at the iPad, or we can meet at my place. Another line reads, go to school to become a celebrity, but don't be late, because everybody and their mama got a sex tape. He concludes that the country's global power is waning. You can either learn Chinese or get down on your knees. After recording the Welcome to America album, Prince announced a tour of the same name, telling prospective ticket holders in a written statement, bring fans, bring your children, and bring foot spray, because it's going to be funky. He also warned the world is fraught with misinformation. George Orwell's vision of the future is here. So a deluxe version will feature a previously unreleased concert film of a 2011 Prince gig at the Forum in Inglewood, California. A 23-song set that includes cover version of Bob Dylan's Make You Feel My Love, Janet Jackson's What Have You Done For Me lately, and closing the show, it's Roxy Music's More Than This. It will also feature a 32-page book some photographic art print, a poster, and replica items from the era. A sticker, a set list, a ticket, a VIP invitation, and a backstage pass. A double vinyl edition will be featured, an etched design on the fourth side. An additional 7-inch release will feature the title track alongside a live rendition on the B-side recorded in 2011 as a medley with the song Dreamer. The release will excite fans for the release of further archive material drawn from Prince's mythically enormous vault that required drilling into after his passing in 2016, and reportedly only he had access to it. 2 posthumous collections have been released: the stunning acoustic set Piano and a Microchip 1983, and Originals, a compilation of demos of songs such as Manic Monday that he wrote for other artists. Expanded versions of albums Purple Rain 1999 and Sign of the Times have also been issued, featuring unreleased tracks from the vault. And that's maybe one of the things that we haven't touched on here. But he has written a lot of songs that people probably have stuck in their heads, and they've got no idea that it was Prince that wrote them, right?
Yeah.
Because he wrote a right collection of songs. Did he not? Did he not write that?
And gave them to different people.
Yeah, big artists.
Yeah, a lot of his girlfriends.
Well, see, under that name, I wonder if he got any of the money from that song that came out from them, or the record company got all that money. You know what I mean? It's hard to know when he was under the name Prince what happened. But hey, I wanted to point at something because Nace had brought up the clone issue, and I wanted to point out that when Jack Black had recently a couple years ago made a crappy movie, and he was on an interview, and they said, "Are you going to make a part 2? You're going to do a part 2, Jack?" And he goes, "Well, you kind of have to. You kind of have to do a part 2, because if you don't, they clone you and they kill you, or they kill you and they clone you." That's exactly what he said. So, I mean, you see a lot of these weird glitches with Eminem. You see glitches with Cardi B. You see glitches with all these celebrities. You start to wonder who's in control. If you're not in control of your mind, somebody else is, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, whether or not he was cloned or not, when he got inducted into the Music Hall of Fame, and at the end of the show, he was doing the guitar solo for George Harrison's While My Guitar Gently Weeps. At the end of his 3-minute solo, he took his guitar and he threw it up into the sky. And if you were the witnessing audience, you didn't see it land. And then he just turned and walked off the stage like his excrement did not stink whatsoever. And he just strolled off it like, I own this place. And unbeknownst to the audience, they didn't know that his guitar handlers, his guitar techs, were positioned to catch his guitar. Yet on the TV, it looked like he just threw his guitar and it never landed. But the guy in itself, especially for his tiny stature, that was the one thing about Prince. I think he was like 5'3", 5'4", if that.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, there we go, man. Go the little man.
So that Napoleon, what's the
Complex.
syndrome? Complex, yeah. So he definitely was larger than life, and I'm glad to have experienced his music. But
you should go watch after the show's over, ladies and gentlemen. Go look up a video called "Get Off" Prince video, and it'll be a virtual reality experience like I was talking about earlier. And how the video starts is there's 2 girls that are coming up to a door, a giant door, and it's Diamond and Pearl from the new Power Generation videos, and they go up and they knock on the door, and the door opens up and starts out with Prince is on the floor on all fours screaming out the beginning of that song, and then the song itself takes off after that. I highly recommend it if you want to get the full on Prince and the new Power Generation experience.
And we didn't even get into the Paisley Park complex. Take a few moments and look at the symbolism in his meditation room and the temple room, and the iconography in itself and the design of the buildings are just bizarre in itself.
Well, we are nearly out of time, gents. It's been an experience today.